Boom, we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today. This is Tio and the Arcane Bear. Okay, this has been fun. Watching Bitcoin rip up to $47,000, almost $48,000 has been a lot of fun. I actually think that this is vindication in our thesis. Now, a lot of people are wondering, are we going to see further downside in Bitcoin first? And I'm going to drop in and take a look at that. And I do believe we're going to see some short-term turnaround. We might not, though. Please remember that I'm going to give you a scenario of why I am so bullish and what that long-term bullishness looks like. And we could go over later why it's not distribution, as I see one or two thoughts and questions about that in the private den. But let's continue to dive in here. So now you should be able to see the chart. Okay, so this is a very colorful version of the Bitcoin chart. I normally try not to show you guys things with so many flashy colors because I believe that too much data is not equivalent to signal, and often too much data comes through largely as noise, and that's not what I'm trying to understand. I want to know what's going to happen next and for how long can I rely on that. Now, I'm ultimately bullish. We have been, even since we hit the top way back here, the previous tops of around 64,000, I continue to hold the agitation that it was very likely we were seeing a long-term mid-range reaccumulation, and that one of the comparisons I had made was with the S&P 500. Now, this is not the one I want to show you. This is a shorter term story here. This I thought was a really nice analog of the fractal nature of marketplaces and the universe itself, which is also a fun little story trail to go down. But on top here, you have in gold our favorite Bitcoin, and just down below we have the S&P 500. Now, scale invariance is a very unique function. It means that if we change the scale, at this case, the time function and the price function, and we were to totally remove both time and price, because that's what scale invariant would mean, is because the scale of either of those things would become irrelevant. What we're seeing here is a pattern that we've seen before, and I actually wanted to go over this because I thought this is a really, really valuable moment to participate in, because it seems to be one that happens frequently. So this comparison looks often like a double top. It's what both people declare into. So again, mind you that at the top of the pink here, down to the bottom of the pink, this is effectively the 2001 dot-com crisis, and then the drop here was the 2008 financial crisis. And on the bottom, what we have to remember is that if we scroll outwards, this is the S&P 500 afterwards. So what does Bitcoin look like afterwards? And this is where I start to see the potential of a super cycle coming in, where what we're witnessing right now is a very short-term, very highly powerful mid-range accumulation on a way to kind of like an interesting blow off top, which again, it would kind of lead into our thesis of the ultimate degradation of trust in fiat, or just kind of by decree currencies anywhere around the world. Like, come on, we can do a better job than this. Like, we have the technology. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the technology. So here it is. What does that look like over time as it gets adopted? It's a very unique question. But again, I think what we're witnessing is very similar to the analog of the S&P 500, which is largely kind of technology companies of the previous 20 to 40 years. But this next growth cycle for Bitcoin, I believe, is going to be very strong and likely going to continue mostly only up. You're going to see constant hands trying to accumulate. And there are other areas where we see this as well. So if we go back to this is an idea that we had gone over. There are a few other people that looked at it. I was not the first by any means. This is not what I got right, but I do like looking at this because I think it's really important to understand what we're witnessing within that scale invariant function. So this is Mr. George Lindsay's 3 peaks and a domed house. It is a pattern chart that is little known as a bearish reversal. Bearish reversal. Okay, so what does that mean? It actually continues upwards after. This is a really key moment that a lot of people overlook. It's a bearish reversal stock chart pattern that was discovered by the analyst George Lindsay, who issued a market advisory letter through the 1950s and 1970s. So this is really important. After we hit number 0.28, which is equivalent to where 0.10 is, more or less, And remember, this is a footprint out in the wild. So for a moment, let's look at some footprints out in the wild of this 3 peaks and a domed house. So here we have from Matthew Hyland. He shared this today. A version of that I did not yet recognize was actually in the NASDAQ. Now, we're showing you Bitcoin here on the right-hand side, which we are all a fan of and have recognized because we've gone over this chart before under this same operating assumption that what we're witnessing is actually a reversal pattern of a larger reaccumulation pattern, effectively. So here the NASDAQ in 1997 through 1999 and Bitcoin 2020 to 2022. What you went again, bearish reversal pattern. Okay, so that was a really key point that I think a lot of people overlooked, is that this looks ultimately bearish until it reverses, right? And that's what this looks like. This reversal of the NASDAQ, this reversal that we saw in the S&P 500 that basically went straight up for the next 20 years afterwards, that's what a bearish reversal signal looks like. The 2008 was deemed a crisis, and then it reverted all the way upwards. Now, what we need to, again, remember is that the reason why these markets have continually gone upwards like this, and that we're seeing the S&P 500, is because the central banks are printing currencies at astounding rates to make up, well, for a few reasons, but largely that's a bad thing to do. It's a loss-filled system. There's corruption in each of the wires, or let's say corrosion in each of the wires. That's a better way to say it. And we're losing signal in this economic system. And Bitcoin and a lot of these new technologies we're playing with help clean that up and make a much stronger signal to the participants within the ecosystem, which is super exciting. So I'm not going to underestimate what happens next. And I believe that if you just go for a rough comparison, because here on the S&P 500, we came down to 60 and we were up at 130. So, and then we went all the way up to 400 and 500. So this would put Bitcoin upwards of $220,000 within its next run before it kind of finishes off into a blow off top and then starts a whole new accumulation cycle over for the decade afterwards. So keep that in mind. That's what we could be potentially looking at here, where we also then see Bitcoin go into the millions as it becomes kind of the stable wealth, money underlying the currency. And this is one of the unique functions that we're starting to see with things like Luna as well, is that, well, you know what makes a really good treasury asset? Bitcoin. It's a great money. Right? A currency is a different conversation. And we've talked about this many times. So Bitcoin is a money, I think, and as a technology growing right now, I'm hyper bullish on. Now, could we see a quick little reversal? Yes, 100%. I try not to think about the micro too often because it's very annoying and it can send you for a doozy. If you look at just a comparison here, go back to the NASDAQ, look at the final wick down of the NASDAQ here on the left-hand side of the finalization of this 3 peaks in a domed house before the reversal took place, right? So we don't want to be too cocky and assume that we are out of this full reversal pattern yet, and that there isn't something kind of scary lurking in the side that could plunge us all the way down to $19,000 real quick before ripping back up to $47,000. So I don't suggest playing with leverage at any point along the way unless you have enough capital to cover all of your positions in any direction for an extended period of time, which if that's the case, well, then you can do whatever you want probably, but I still don't suggest it. Bitcoin's upside is fucking infinite effectively when we understand the failure of fiat is somewhere, right? Somewhere. Maybe not today, tomorrow, but somewhere. It's happened more than once and will probably continue to happen again. So we're not bidding on the demise of the United States form of capitalism. They've figured some amazing things out, but more so just that kind of underlying system needs to be replaced, it seems. So I'm hyper bullish. I think that this is a very strong reversal pattern. Again, if you looked at the 3 peaks in the domed house stuff that we had gone over in some of our previous videos, we were more interested in the reversal aspect. And this is what we've talked about this whole time. It's really nice to see it come to fruition. And I believe that we're probably just going to go only up from here. So that micro aspect that I don't like talking about, I will, because I'm sure some of you want to know, and here, this is all one of the things that I want to recommend. Remember, price volatility is designed to work with the new investor by kind of screwing them around with trying to find like the best entry, when effectively just buying on a month-over-month basis is one of the easiest ways to make a hugely successful investment strategy without trying and not having to change your day job effectively to get it right. So this is important. All these flashy colors, I feel, are often like a light bulb that attracts moths. Although it can be useful, most people, you shouldn't be a day trader. You can make an enormous amount of capital being a good investor, and it provides a level of patience in its virtue that is very fun to enjoy. So if we do look closely, though, at this macro here, there is a nice big chunk and gap kind of right here, back all the way down to around $40,000. We've hit the top of our 314-day moving average, and I do suspect we would come back down to test around the 41,000 at the bottom of our Bollinger Band here, which is that kind of light blue shaded sequence. So that's very possible. Again, we don't want to try to predict the market in its price volatility, not in this micro scale. It's not super functional. Again, what I feel is better is if we have this macro scale, here's a trend reversal, here's what that trend reversal looks like on multiple sections, whether you're looking at it in the NASDAQ or whether you're looking at it on the S&P 500. These are bullish signals, bearish reversal signal. So after 28, this down point here that hits around 0.10, we go onwards and upwards for an extended period of time. So I think that's something everyone should be excited about, which brings us to kind of our next portion of today's little thought rant experiment before we take questions from our private group. I wanted to go over something that we made a little investment in. Okay. This is C2X. Now, the reason why I want to show you guys this one wasn't because we made the investment, but because I wanted to share. Well, first off, I think it's a smart play. We're going to have their founder on tomorrow or the day after. I'm never good with calendars, but nonetheless, I make the appointments. We get in there. We've got a podcast with Caillou Manana. But I want to share some deep dive kind of focus with you for a sec, because I try not to think too much when I'm doing things. So I'm just looking for clear signal when we're investing. So one of the things I thought was fun is on their listing page here from FTX, when they listed on March 21st, just like cursory stuff. C2X platform was developed by Com2US Group. I was like, okay, so who's the Com2US Group? Oh, and Terraform Labs. This is one of the other ones I like. You know, Terra is a big Luna is a big ecosystem. Terra has a lot of reach in the South Korean ecosystem. So who's Com2US behind CTX here? Provide the inspiration of the world through engaging content. Spends way through Com2US Group. Okay, so we go to the group. They've got a whole distribution network. Hive Games, specialized in game services. So this is just a quick cursory. I'm trying to share with you guys kind of how I do. We're going to do a deeper dive here. You can find it on our website as well once it's posted. But let's go to the Com2US Group. Oh, where is it? Holdings platform. One of these ones says games. I forget which one it was. Oh no. Maybe it's under holdings. Yes, okay. So Com2US Holdings. This is where I landed. So I started to look closer at their games. And one of the reasons why I really like this is a platform play. This is a group of people who already have a skill set and background in producing games. They have the distribution of the network for those games, the esports teams, relationships. So it's largely this kind of transitional play. And not always is it a good idea. Like Kodak was slow to make the punch or transition of understanding why digital cameras were the future. So it's not always that big players understand the transition, but it doesn't mean that they always miss it either. We have to remember that Netflix was largely DVD before it was an online streaming service. So they're all constantly adapting. And Com2US has some games that we quite liked. So some of these games already have 100 million plus downloads. Where was this one? It was Chromatic Souls. No, I have to type the name in. They've got a few pages. Anyway, so they produce games, right? Not every game is going to be a hit either. This is one of the things about this that I like, is like this looks like a generator. So if you kind of start to look at people like Manish Prabhai's thesis, and I guess a few other people, Alphabet, for example, is the parent of Google, is always investing in new startup companies, right? So here, Com2 US Holdings is actually investing frequently in these games and looking to find a product market fit, and it has a background in it too. So I believe that we're going to see more platform plays like this from already kind of up and running game developers who are refleshing out this idea, because the incentive is huge to participate and see what the network effect of a growth of a brand looks like. So super excited about CTX there. We'll keep an eye on that, and we've got their podcast coming up. And then also, oh, that's not what I want to click on, but it is what I wanted to talk about, was the Bored Ape, just the ape community in general. I've been fascinated about the last week, spent an abnormal time thinking about the normal. So what I wanted to do was go back to, well, first off, you had to buy everything with ApeCoin. That's kind of unimportant. The swag, it's kind of unimportant, although it is fun to participate. They've really done something, this whole like, oh, you're in the private members club, you get to buy this private swag. They've done an amazing job at branding and with a cultural identity. And one of the things that I really liked, actually, let's go back here. Why do I not have a Bored Ape something open right now? I'm talking about it. Let's go back to their Bored Ape page, just because I'm sure they've said something that I can chat about too, but this is what I'm talking about for the second. This kind of cultural identity and Web3 native identity, or web, I guess just web native identity, right? This is kind of a fun thing to participate with. I was slow to kind of recognize it, but what I suggest is better late than never to a party, especially at the yacht club with the other freaking apes. So as long as you're showing up, it's fine. It's like we'll all have fun. So what I thought was interesting about this, as I've started to understand more what's the potential here, money and currency are largely mimetic as well. We're relying on technology with Bitcoin because we're just like, oh my God, this is like, you could beat a dead horse with how reliable this technology is at providing us certain aspects of our censorship resistant digital property. But digital identity is a kind of unexplored aspect of this property ownership, right? We always think about, well, how do me, the person, own this property? But we forget often that there are many people in different places whose identity has actually put them at crisis. Let's say like being a Russian now all of a sudden is apparently just like a black mark, no matter what it is that you've done as a civilian. This is kind of scary stuff. So if we look at a more playful aspect of identity, aside from how cultural identity and politics or religious identity have kind of shaped the conversations of the background, this new kind of native Web3 identity is very playful. And one of the things that I like about that is we need new forms of not just money, but of identity and of governance, right? Some of the things we've been using don't work as effectively as they could, and we should update them. Largely speaking, you should do that frequently. There's some older ways of saying it, like keep your room clean or something, like make sure you're updating your make sure anyways, the point of this is what they've done as a cultural branding motif, building up this community of like-minded individuals, and again, what's fun is the early adoption was from more individualized kind of artist thinkers, right? This is not people early on spending $500,000 on a membership package. These were like $1,000 the first time, a few $1,000s where people were participating, and those people are probably pretty fringe, right? So the early adopters were the fringe thinkers. So this is a cultural movement of fringe kind of ideations of identity. And I've been very excited about it. Anyways, the point of this story was we snagged some merch just for fun. I really like what they've done. I thought participating just made all the more sense at this point. Anyways, that's the last part of the rant I wanted to go over, aside from a few thoughts and questions from the private group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll over that, and then maybe we'll actually go over a few more things at the end of the episode where we open it up to the live stream, and we just maybe try to make a longer chat today, because I'm sure people want to talk. And it's fucking Monday morning, so what else better things do I have to do than to chat with you guys all out here in the bear community? So let's roll in to the private group here. Okay. Brew says, we just saw Bitcoin close the 50 MA moving average. If it can't hold support at the MA and gets rejected, how likely we see it wicking down to the 200 moving average like it has done in the past? Okay. Yes, okay. Largely, I think moving averages are a lagging indicator. They're not a great leading indicator. The leading indicator that we're looking at is the macro view, and the macro view is very strong. Again, even if we saw a quick wick down to $20,000, which is totally possible in a liquid supply, where what happens if someone, like where we don't know where 1 million Bitcoins are. They've never been moved, but hey, you never know. The world is goddamn crazy, right? Impossible shit happens all the time, so don't totally bet against it, and just understand that weird shit can happen at any time. So because of that, we could totally see a slip, but ultimately you want to kind of reject the thesis of being too glued to this micro these micro movements. It's hard. Once you get a lot of capital in the market too, it's hard to bear through it. Like, I know, ladies and gentlemen, like, it's no fun jumping up and then jumping down like significant sums of capital. But the focus of generating revenue through productive relationships in your community with whatever products and service you want to provide is like a much healthier way to go. And just keep making investments is a sounder way where your success rate is like 95%. And you get to enjoy a lot of the time that you would like participating. So again, I think we could see a quick retouch of 40,000. If something cataclysmic came across the table, you could see as low as 19,000. It's not off the table. But ultimately, if you were to ask me flip of a coin where we go, or sorry, not bet 70-30, oh, I'm going 70%. We're just going up from here. Even if we touch $40,000, it's going to be quick. It's going to turn around, and we're going to see up and up and up and up. There is a little bit of hidden supply out there in the market still. Yes, we don't know who is in control of Satoshi's wallet. What happens if that came online? It would definitely slip the market a little bit because that's a huge chunk of supply, but it also gets chewed up very quickly as well. So I don't negate that. Right now, we've looked at that in many different ways. The open supply on Bitcoin has basically just gone down and down and down. So let's go to, here you can see what to me appears as a very, very bullish sentiment. You have a falling supply line and a slowly rising price. And what's interesting is that over the last month, this has started to really invert again, where you're seeing the price and the supply right at this moment of this big drop of the supply really indicate that the market's price is catching up with how much the supply has actually decreased. And again, you have to remember that back here when we were at $60,000 and we dropped the supply line the first time, a huge fucking chunk of it came in, almost a whole percent. Yeah, from 13.5 to 14.5. That was an entire 1% of Bitcoin supply came onto the market in less than a 20-day period. That was incredible. There's a huge amount of supply coming into the market. So we've been consistently going down, and we've chewed up that entire percent since then. So I suspect that now that the price is going to rise, you're going to see that supply dissipate very, very quickly. And you could see a moment where Bitcoin just runs to $120,000, $250,000 almost overnight. When you start to have a totally illiquid supply, and you start to see people that want to hold on to the asset because there seems like there's only an upside, you start to get some really irrational things taking place in the market. And that's, again, where I'm excited about, where I think that we could see something like this. I think we could see something that emulates the S&P 500, where after this bearish reversal signal of the three peaks in the domed house, you just basically have an onwards and upwards for the significant forward-seeing future. I think it'll catch a lot of people off guard. So yeah, I don't think it's a super cycle, but I do think it's a reaccumulation into like a blow off top where potentially we see a total degradation in fiat currency over the next 10 or 20 years. Because I don't see how they keep that game alive. Even with a central bank digital currency, I don't see how you could do it. There's just not enough trust in the system anymore. People don't trust the government or the banks or the system. They might say they do, but they're scared underneath. That's for damn sure. Okay, let's see. One more. I got a few more questions in the private group you guys want to go over, so I'll keep doing that before we go to the live stream chat. Thoughts on sell in May and walk away? Absolutely not. I don't think that people should be too active with their investment portfolio. They should focus on just buying. If you do this over the course of the decade, you're going to be successful, guaranteed. If you don't do that and you go this like, I'm going to buy and then rebuy and then sell and then reback, sell, buy back, I can't guarantee you're going to be successful or even here in the future making investments, because you might get washed out along that process. So this is a much easier way to go. I try to ignore like these other parable ideas that just don't fit our thesis in terms of like long-term macro investing. Short-term, yes, we've seen amazing gains in particular areas, but we want to recognize where that happens. Again, we saw huge asymmetric upside in things like Matic 250x, like a Fetch 100, 250x. Being patient, finding good early investments right now. That's why we're so focused on the blockchain play to earn sector. We just believe that it kind of has that long-term staying power and will act as the on-ramp to that next 2 billion participants in this kind of fun new exploration into finance, identity, and governance ownership. Yeah, that's what we could call it. I mean, private ownership of digital identity is as important as money, I would suspect, right? They kind of go hand in hand. Anyways, just a side thought. So yeah, who cares? Just to keep accumulating good assets. Yep, can't go wrong with that. Okay, we'll take a few thoughts and questions from the. I was late to drop the group chat in there, so there's not too many questions right now, which is always easy. I like these shorter shows. Okay, C2S or CTX? Yes, so it's CTX. Let's go back here. But it was the Com2 US group. That was kind of who was building out this platform in partnership with Terra Labs. Yeah, so there you go. So this is the background building company. If you want to find them on Twitter, we're going to have them on for the podcast, so just tune in for that. But yeah, so the token is CTX, but the company is C2X, like Com2 US, Com2X, yeah. So you can follow them there. Welcome to C2X blockchain gaming platform. Again, they've built some successful, like I think I saw 100. We didn't get to go too deep into it. I did just go surface layer. They're very exciting. Again, if you look closer at their holdings, and I think one of these games is like 100 million plus downloads from what I saw. Press news support. Let's see. Chromatic Souls. Yeah, I just forget which game it was. Yeah, the launching. I forget which game name it was, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at the game name thing yet. They've got a bunch of games on their platform. This was the really exciting thing. But one of the games I was looking at had like 100 million downloads on their app store already. Maybe it was Chromatic Souls. I don't remember. Anyways, do your homework. You'll figure it out. And you can tell me the name and Twitter. You can also follow them on Twitter too. I suggest doing that. You'll get better information about them from them than me. But I can only point you the way to C2X. It's like the information I can give you. How do you feel about Gala Games macro? Oh yeah, this is like a Gala Games for sure. Good kind of point out. There's another one we're looking at called. That's kind of in the background still. They're not ready. Anyways, that doesn't matter. This is kind of like Gala Games. The great team, and again, this holding company, they already have a game with 100 million downloads. Like, so they've got a good trajectory as that kind of back end building platform already too, which is super exciting. So, excited about that. Tio, do you think Solana or Avalanche will finish this year ranked higher? Oh, I'm trying to think about those things because they're variable functions. Both, in my jungle opinion, are good investments into the future. There's a few now that are out there that have been really surprising. You know, it felt almost easier when it was just technology investments we were making, because we could make a clear distinction, like, oh, Avalanche looks like good technology. Like, as in comparison, I never really liked Ripple. Now, again, I'm not super technologically advanced, so I'm sure a lot of Ripple fans will like, oh my God, you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, cool. But nonetheless, I thought we thought Avalanche was it definitely hit some alarm bells with both our team and myself, and then Solana as well. When you just look at community building, and largely I think people don't understand that you need network effect in what you're building, from all avenues, and the more you can really dominate network effect, the better of a player you're going to be, regardless of your ecosystem. Once you can start to have that much interest in your ecosystem, that's really how you win the game, I think. So it's not always the best technology either, or the best games, but it's usually a little bit easier to pick the technology. The games, I would have a hard time. I actually have no idea what's popular in gaming. Like I'm like researching, and by researching I mean like playing Fortnite. Just try to figure out what's going on. And I'm actually we do deep dive research, clearly. But nonetheless, this kind of platform system like Gala Games, like C2X, that we see makes a lot more sense now, because there's a high level of volatility in which games are going to hit. I would suspect, like, just like any venture investment, if there's a platform where you have access to multiple games and game builders, it seems a bit more of a sensible kind of what would you call it, an indexed version of its play. The company's like, yeah, we already build games and hold games, like this is what we do. So anyways, I thought that was a fun little find. Keep it on your guys' radar. We know we definitely are, and I'm excited to chat with Caillou Lee here. I believe it's tomorrow. I'll have to check my calendar. But anyways, leave it at that. Nikos lastly asked about distribution schematic 2, and no. I do not believe that is what we're witnessing. Now, it's actually a great point. There's always reason to believe we could see distribution. We're in some volatile times in the world, but there's too many positive indicators in the potential of the sector due to that lossless aspect in the financial, like a more frictionless financial ecosystem is worth a fuck ton. Same with identity, especially if you can like catapult it into its own sovereign identity through participation reports. It seems super sensible. I mean, it's kind of like a function-based reputation score. It's better than centralized, but sure, I don't see why not. I actually believe that there's a future for that. So that's kind of an abstraction to the why not distribution. I just see way too much potential for sovereign ownership in not just financial property, but in or intellectual property, in brand property, but in cultural and identity as well. It makes a lot of sense. Now, how you do that, I guess we're like really kind of spur of the moment, but that's also why we're big fans of the ape story now. Seems like a fitting cultural phenomenon. Yeah. Reaccumulation after decline. Yeah, Bear Den Jerry I agree with here. It makes most sense. Actually, Jerry, you shared a great one in the private den I wanted to share here in the trade setups the other day. Let's take a look here. It was this Avalanche one, yeah. So this was a reaccumulation after shakeout that you had drawn up, Jerry. I thought this was really nice. Avalanche is around $95 right now, and I believe moving to $140 and probably upwards and outwards into the $300 to $600 range. Nonetheless, these look like accumulation schematics, not distribution schematics, and across the board too. So the reason why we're bullish on Bitcoin is because largely we're seeing bullish signals throughout the market. We actually can find these across the table. Now, some of the smaller, newer stuff got shook out real fucking hard. Like I had some position, like our position in Soul Rise went up 10x and then down 800%, or 8x, right? So we see that there was a lot of volatility from the DeFi into some of the recourse from those highs, whether it was in May or recently here in December. But effectively, these are what we believe to be the bottoms of the accumulation trading range, not the distribution trading range, just because there's so much momentum coming in. Anyways, we're going to know very shortly. But yeah, I believe Baird and Jerry, we just broke up and are going to continue to break up into that LPS range. of this reaccumulation one that you shared. What else? There was one more thought here I wanted to go over before we sign off. Oh yes, if you have not yet, please subscribe to Arcane Bear. Give us a like on this content. Try to stay up to date. I think we provide as much value as we can, step by step. There's a lot of fun things going on out there. Just simple, consistent is going to be the best way to invest in this ecosystem for the next 10 years. So I know it's kind of a boring mantra, but thanks for all showing up to hear the same damn thing over again, but just looking at new places to do those same things, right? So we suspect that a good investment thesis is going to continue to be a good investment thesis. And if we get them wrong, we just don't invest more, right? So we try to be a month by month basis and reassessment of what we're convicted in and where we're finding entry. Now, if you all of a sudden have a bunch of extra new capital and you want to play around, now there's a whole bunch other ways to do that, but even still, consistent investment strategies are really the most productive for everyone. There's a few. There's obviously outlier and fringe cases where this stuff explodes in your favor, and that's why we all participate here. Like I know there's a few of the private Bear Den who bought Bored Apes when they were like $2,000, and I was having nothing to do with it then. And I try to also constantly remind people, like, whatever I'm looking at, like, you're going to find stuff that's interesting that I'm not going to be interested in. Like, what we try to teach is a broad level of skill set that is adaptable to whatever because you're going to be right about shit that I'm never going to see, right? It's just the way the universe works. I got like my little niche and the focus of things that I can understand, and it works for me. But largely, everyone is good at different things. So you're going to recognize things and you want to take your own risks and make your own assessments of due diligence and value within a company and that potential over the next 10 or 20 years, if you're right. And also how much you're willing to lose if you're wrong. And it's a pretty clear, easy to repeat process. But you got to get the mantra right. So we keep showing up, we keep trying to repeat it, and I feel that a lot of you have gotten it and really figured it out. I've gotten so many great messages from the private members about it working out. So just remember, be patient, keep showing up. When things are low, that's when you want to be accumulating. If you held a lot of assets in it and then it went down and it feels low, don't worry, just keep consistent. Even if it's only an extra few $100 or a few $1,000s when you add it in, it actually makes a significant difference over time by participating. So we highly suggest that. We think this whole Web3 sector is basically part of rewarding people for participating. The network effect of things is really how we should look at this, because that's been taken away from the majority of people. It's like, oh, hey, all these amazing, huge corporations that grew up around us, but in no way really did you get any of their growth. So this is the way we solve that, I think. So show up, learn how to participate, use the technology. If you haven't, right, do it. And then don't blame anyone, so just make sure you're willing to lose. And if you're a bigger player, there are some more advanced strategies, but nonetheless, it's just bigger investments in these projects as time goes. So we still believe that time-focused, convex investing, so like buy time sweeps effectively, because you might as well get a little bit of the high, a little bit of the low, and make sure you know where you are over the course of a year or two than not. You get like a perfectly rounded adjustment price. So it's actually almost the same. Maybe you could probably be a bit riskier, obviously, when you have more capital, but the underlying thesis is almost identical. So anyways, we'll leave it at that. This deal with the Arcane Bear. Oh, what do you think of Luna? We're fans of Luna as well. So that's that. That's the jungle opinion. This is Tio with the Arcane Ape. Just for today, I had to say it. This is the Arcane Ape, Tio. We're signing off. The bear, Tio, the ape, and the bear. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Wait. Did you load up any Launchpad tokens? No, I'm not a big fan of Launchpads per se. I mean, public sale is good, but how we... They're all very difficult conversations. We'll save that for another episode. What we're going to do right now, though, is just give you the outro screen instead.